In this video, we're about to break down the spoilers for My Hero Academia chapter 337, in which the whole of Class 1A discovers that Aoyama is the UA Traitor. The chapter last week ended with him confessing to Midoriya that he's been working for All For One, and today I'll be explaining what happens next. By the end of this video, you'll understand how Aoyama can still be useful to the heroes, and how something in this chapter subtly confirms that one of the teachers is also a traitor. Believe me, I'm not exaggerating when I say that, but as the video goes on, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Before we get into it though, don't forget to sub to the channel for weekly spoiler breakdowns like this, and drop a like as well if you like the video. Okay, so the title of chapter 337 is A Disposable Life, which is a reference to how All For One perceives Aoyama. The chapter begins on the villain side of things, with Darby saying that it'll be bad for them if the traitor's identity is discovered by the other students, but AFO replies saying it won't be a big deal. To him, Aoyama and his parents are just disposable tools, so if they fail it doesn't really matter because he can always move on to the next plan. The scene then switches over to the forest, with Yuga's parents grabbing their son as they start running away from Deku. Aoyama himself continues to cry as he remembers the past and thinks back to how much his parents have always cared for him since he was a baby. He imagines they must have been even sadder than he was when it was revealed he was quirkless, which is the only reason they listened to the rumors about a guy who could give quirks to other people. Yuga remembers that when the power he received wasn't compatible with his body, his parents did their best to provide equipment to help him use it, and he was excited to start pursuing his dream. However, this is when All For One started giving them orders, as it was him that told Aoyama to apply to UA, because AFO knew that All Might was going to be joining the school as a teacher. Now, this line right here literally confirms that there is more than one UA traitor besides Aoyama, and I'm going to explain why. If we flash all the way back to chapter 11, the news that All Might would be teaching at UA didn't become public knowledge until after the kids had already begun their studies. All Might confirmed that he didn't tell a single person he was going to be joining UA. Even Deku himself didn't know until after he completed the entrance exam. At this point in the timeline, the only people who might have known that All Might was going to become a teacher were Nezu, All Might himself, and potentially Sir Nighteye as well, but nobody in the public should have known except them, yet somehow AFO was able to tell Aoyama months before the public announcement. The only logical explanation is that someone on the inside of the school told him in advance, and out of the candidates we currently have, Nezu is the only real option given that All Might obviously wouldn't tell All For One himself, and Nighteye was All Might's biggest fan, so highly unlikely he would have betrayed him. Let me know what you think about this in the comments down below, but like I said, All Might confirmed he didn't tell anyone, right? So if he didn't tell anyone, how is it that All For One knew this before the public announcement? The only explanation is that Nezu told him, like he is the only viable candidate, so it only makes sense for Nezu to be the one, meaning there is a second traitor at UA. Those of you that haven't seen my Nezu traitor theory should really check it out as I explain things in a lot more detail there, but to simplify it for this video, Nezu is a creation of Dr Garaki and All For One's experiments. The manga heavily implied that mice were responsible for the manifestation of quirks, and someone like Garaki therefore had a reason to test on mice when he was researching about his quirk singularity theory. My theory is that one of those mice was modified and given a quirk from AFO, and then would eventually go on to become Principal Nezu, who is a character that is confirmed to have been heavily experimented on in the past. If I had to guess, Nezu's plan was that All Might would give his power to someone that he chose himself, aka Mirio or someone like that, and then AFO would ambush that student and steal one for all before they could master it. Anyway, back to this chapter, AFO's most recent order to Aoyama was for him to somehow make Midoriya leave UA again, otherwise his parents would die. Yuga keeps crying as he shoots a laser directly at Deku, but Hagakure uses her power to reflect the laser in a different direction, which is a combo move they've actually demonstrated in the past. She asks Aoyama how he would have felt if everyone died when he betrayed them, and as Invisible Girl cries, we actually start to see some of her face for the first time. I guess this is down to the way the laser is reflecting, although if this is all it takes, I'm genuinely surprised we've not seen it before today. Yuga's parents then turn around and try to explain their side of the story, but Deku easily restrains the entire Aoyama family using Black Whip. Izuku says that they need to stop this once and for all, and that Invisible Girl's actions in the last chapter were to stop the Aoyamas from hurting anyone else. Things then cut to the classroom, where Yuga and his parents are tied to chairs in front of All Might, Nezu, Detective Tsukauchi, the other teachers, and all of Class 1A. They analyze the situation, trying to estimate when the quirk must have been given to Aoyama, and they assume that it must not have an explosion mechanism like Nagant's. Those of you who saw my chapter review last week will know that I think Aoyama's parents are likely to have an explosion mechanism inside them, but assuming they don't, I'm curious how All For One exactly would kill them. The explosion mechanism is the best way to do it because they're not safe anywhere they go, but if they don't have that, then you'd think they would have felt safer being at UA. Regardless, All Might asks the students to leave, and we see a panel showing all of them shocked, saying that they're not leaving. Ojiro wonders what would have happened if Hagakure didn't find out, and Kirishima screams in disbelief, asking Aoyama to say it's all a lie. Meanwhile, Bakugo states that he never expected to meet another quirkless person who received a power from someone else, and that the world really must be a small place. Detective Tsukauchi then asks the Aoyamas to reveal everything they know about AFO, but the father claims that they don't know anything and that they just received the quirk and were following orders. Apparently, All For One even showed them dead bodies, so they would understand what would happen if they lied to him or if Aoyama failed in his mission. Yuga then starts saying that because his classmates were so nice to him, he ended up acting this way to get closer to everyone, even though he knew he might one day have to kill them. However, after reading Deku's letter and finding out that Midoriya himself used to be quirkless, Aoyama then became depressed, which is something that everyone else seemed to notice. He ends his speech by declaring himself to be a villain down to his core, and that even his soul is rotten. But Deku replies saying if that was really the case, he wouldn't have tried to save Tokiyami and Bakugo during the training camp, and he also wouldn't have written that message in the cheese, which was actually a cry for help. Izuku goes on to say that Aoyama is only crying now because he didn't want to betray his friends, which is proof that he isn't truly on All For One's side. Midoriya then starts talking about his experience with Lady Nagant, and how even though she had her heart used by All For One, that didn't stop her in the end from, helping the heroes achieve their goal. According to Midoriya, no one should be called a villain for the rest of their lives over a single crime, and the chapter ends with him reaching his hand out to Aoyama, telling him that he can still become a hero. Yuga then takes his hand in response, and I can already think of one crazy way that they can use him being the traitor to trick All For One. From this chapter, we learned that AFO wants Midoriya to leave UA again, so the Aoyamas could send him a message making it seem like they've succeeded, with Deku then actually leaving the school on his own. We saw in chapter 335 that Shigaraki still has the search quirk, so the villains would be able to verify that Midoriya is by himself, and therefore Aoyama's parents would be safe. However, what AFO wouldn't know is that deep underground the remaining heroes and students would be following Deku using the UA barrier, which can travel in multiple directions and wouldn't be detected by the search quirk straight away. In this way, Midoriya would seem like he's alone, when in reality the UA barrier could bring the kids to the surface at any time to give him backup. This might give the villains a false sense of security, and All For One and Shigaraki would likely confront Izuku, only to be confronted by all the different heroes who were secretly waiting for them to show up. The only remaining question is, would Nezu try to sabotage a plan like this if it took place? And the answer is most likely yes, but hopefully someone would notice what he's doing, but we'll see what happens. If you like this video, then I'd really appreciate if you smash that sub button for more content like this, and until the next one, peace out.